Not Quite Right features discussions that are unfiltered and uncensored and may include themes that are inappropriate for younger listeners. Also, I swear a lot.
Something doesn't seem quite right. Welcome to Not Quite Right. My name's Ed.
And I'm Amanda.
How you going?
I've had a couple of drinks already. I'm a little bit concerned about how this is going to go for both me and our Daredevil here today.
Yes. Well, you're slightly drunk. I'm in a really weird mood today.
You are in a weird mood.
I'm like half elated. I'm half about to have a nervous breakdown. It's the vicissitudes of life.
Vicissitudes? Oh my
pulling
God.
and pushing on me in every direction, and I don't know what's going on. So it's going to be a fun one for our Daredevil today.
Red flag is when you start using the word vicissitudes. That's a sign that something is not okay.
It's definitely not quite right here and not quite right today.
Okay, well, at least we're on brand.
So welcome to the fourth Daredevil for the April round of the Not Quite Right prize for Flash Fiction. And Daredevils are people who have signed up for the honour of being torn into little pieces by Amanda and I on the podcast.
Torn into vicissitudes.
If you will. So we'll read the story. We'll talk about the story, share our thoughts and opinions, and hopefully all learn something in the process. Today's brave Daredevil is Lisa Vitale. So Lisa's been entering the Not Quite Right prize since April of 2025, where she actually received a wild card that was from me for her story A New Bloom, which I remember was about a kind of an older couple meet cute. Very nice story. But Lisa hasn't made the long list since that story.
All right, rub it in.
So no doubt she has signed up for a Daredevil to find out why.
Good strategy, to be honest.
So Lisa's written for Team Amanda this round.
Woohoo! So my team had the word street, the action of breaking out, and the kicker of prominently featuring a breakdancing move.
And you have the honour of reading this story today.
I do. And so here is Amy and Abby Go Day Drinking in the Hunter Valley by Lisa Vitale. If you enjoy your fingers, don't feed them to the peacocks. Amy's drinking her wine. I know, because the winery spittoon echoes when I spit out mine. Bitch. She promised breakfast before wine tasting. Swore we'd eat early. Yet, here we are. Third winery and not even a breadcrumb all morning. I'd kill for a fucking gherkin. The sommelier catches my eye and drops down to break out a bottle of Pinot Noir. He's super hot. Blue eyes, curly brown hair pulled into a bun. Pretty sure he's got a six-pack to go with that tight ass currently sticking in my face. Amy's shoving her glass forwards, leaning so her tits spill forwards too. Slut. How'd you enjoy our Chardonnay? Wine Fabio asks, grabbing a corkscrew to open the Pinot. He pours half a glass each. I sway in my seat. Delish. What do you say? Bloody brilliant. Amy tries to affect an Australian accent, picking up her glass. To Australia! She cheerses me. You girls know the local toast yet? Here, you say, cheers, big ears. Wine Fabio smiles at me. And you say, pointing at Amy, same goes, big nose. I paw at my nose. It's not that big. Fucking rude-ass Australians. I take a chug, swallowing the juicy berry red liquid. Hints of vanilla. Finally, Amy winks. Abby doesn't always like to swallow. I cough, tasting wine. A loud meow-like sound startles me and I spill my glass. What the hell? I whirl around. Another meow. Ah, the peacocks. Wine Fabio wipes down the bar and refills my glass. My fingers graze his as I grab it. So soft. I burp. They usually hang out across the street till midday, then wander over for a feed. Yeah, your sign. They're not really going to eat our fingers, right? Amy smiles, her teeth discoloured grotesquely from the wine. Speaking of eating, I slur. You got any pretzels, Wine Fabio? So nuts? I chuckle, thinking, fuck, I'd devour a roasted peacock. Amy laughs. You'd eat a peacock? And did you just call him Wine Fabio? Oh my God, so dramatic, Abby. We'll get food, promise. Shiznit, I said that out loud. I look at Wine Fabio. He's laughing as he opens a Merlot, then winks at me. Yeah, those peacocks are more dangerous than drop bears. Drop bears? Abby, let's see the peacocks. She's already up, glass in hand. I lurch after her. One of the birds is strutting towards Amy, who's got her hand out like she's going to pet the damn thing. A flash of blue-green and red as an unholy shriek fills the air, followed by the tinkling of breaking glass. Amy grabs her hand, howling. Shit, you right, mate? Wine Fabio rushes over. Amy's flopping on the ground. I sip my Merlot. Abby, ice, from the bar, he barks. I nod and run. He knows my name. We get Abby sorted with an ice pack, and Wine Fabio looks at me. Name's Mark. We don't have roasted peacock, but we serve wood oven pizza next door. Fancy some lunch?
So thank you, Lisa, for your story. And Lisa's left us a voicemail, so we'll play that now.
Ed and Amanda, it's Scurvy. Some of you know me as Lisa. I have no idea what I'm doing. I did this as punishment for myself for not submitting a story in January, but I am really excited to hear you guys destroy my story. I am interested in what works for you, what didn't work for you, and I feel like, while not completely an unreliable narrator, there is a little bit of an unreliable narrator, and that ties into the ending. Some people see it as rom-com, and to me, it's kind of open-ended. He might just be like, you guys need lunch, and here's the restaurant. So yeah, interested to hear what you guys have to say, and super excited. Thanks, bye.
So thank you, Lisa. And it's an interesting comment about the unreliable narrator. We've got like a drunk narrator in this scenario. And it seems that she's unreliably narrating like her own thoughts and what she thinks are thoughts coming out as words, which I did enjoy about the story. Have you ever had that happen to you, Amanda?
What? Saying something out loud that I
you
shouldn't
thought
have
that you were...
I've got a question for you. Have you ever like group emailed the entire office something that you
that one time, which we won't talk about.
Let's just agree to not press either of each other's bruises right now.
Okay, that's agreed. All right, well, let's get into the story then. And we'll start with the title. And the title is Amy and Abby Go Day Drinking in the Hunter Valley. And the Hunter Valley is actually just up the road from where we are. And day drinking up there sounds lovely.
Yeah, so it's a vineyard region, all the wineries. Great Shiraz. I guess it's famously like a day trip destination if you just want to go get drunk. So you might have like hens parties and things like that go up there. You might have a little dirty weekend up there kind of thing. But yeah, beautiful region and perfect setting for a story.
You can hire a little bus or jump on a little tour and they'll take you from winery to winery and you slowly get more and more drunk as the day goes on.
Slowly. Yeah, I think this title works. I mean, it's a comedy, right? And so I think the title sets that up pretty well. We've got our characters mentioned. We've sort of got the whole setup there in the title, which means you can sort of launch straight into the story, which I think is a good strategy sometimes with the title.
Yeah, it sets the scene right there.
So one thing I just want to highlight though, and it's a bit of a side note because I don't necessarily think it's an issue in this story, although I do want to get to something about this, but it's a common piece of advice to sort of not give your characters names starting with the same letter, which seems really stupid, right? Of course, out in the real world, people have names starting with the same letter. That's okay, or even similar names. And Amy and Abby are not only starting with the same letter, they're also quite similar names, 2 syllables starting with A, ending with Y kind of thing. And the reason why you would normally recommend against that is because it can be difficult for a reader to differentiate those two characters in their mind, and it can start to get a little jumbled up. It just becomes an artistic choice of how we are managing the reader's reading flow, and it can be useful to give more different names to help achieve that flow, even if, it's not about being realistic, it's about what works in a story setting. And I would say that while I don't necessarily have an issue with the names Amy and Abby, there was a big typo in this story where the wrong name was mentioned, and I think that might have even been Lisa's own confusion around who was who in this story, and that's the risk that you run, I suppose, and it's obviously a very, very easy thing to fix. So just to be clear, it's towards the end. So our point of view character is Abby and the friend is Amy, but then right towards the end we have Amy flopping on the ground, I sip my Merlot, Abby ice from the bar he barks, so he knows my name. And then it says, we get Abby sorted with an ice pack. It should be, we get Amy sorted with an ice pack. Very, very minor issue, but at the same time, that's like the final lines. It's a stumbling block for the reader right there at the end. That's not ideal.
It could be the unreliable narrator slipping in once again.
She's
Abby's
so drunk
she's forgotten her own name.
It could indeed be that. Yes, true.
Hunter Valley has that effect on people. Yeah, I think you're right, and I didn't pick up on that, but I do remember rereading this story again before this recording and having a moment where I had to kind of stop and go back and go, hang on, which one's Amy, which one's Abby, and reread a few sentences there. So definitely good advice there. Okay, so moving on to the story, and the opening line is, if you enjoy your fingers, don't feed them to the peacocks. And that line is presented in italics as kind of a standalone statement that opens the story. And maybe, I think it's clarified a little bit later in the story that this is a sign that they're reading. But when you do read that initially, it comes across almost as just a thought, maybe just in the way that's presented in italics here.
Yeah, so I think as a general piece of advice, I'd really strongly recommend against having what I call this disembodied, usually it's dialogue. In this case, it's a sign, it's not dialogue, but it's not attributed to anything. And as readers, while it is, and I think the objective here is to, it's like hook, right? It's a hooking line, it's interesting, and absolutely tick, it works on that basis. But we don't have any context for, as you said, is that someone's thought? Is it someone saying that? Like, where is this line coming from? And then we ignore that to move on immediately to another line which doesn't relate specifically back to that. That can be a little disorienting. And so while it is hooking, it's also confusing. So I would really strongly recommend against that and to say, look, tell us it's a sign right up front. There's no reason not to. You can still have the hooking component of like the threat of someone's fingers being bitten off, but you have some clarity around what exactly are we looking at here in the scene. And I think that's really important when you're trying to drop us into the scene.
Yeah. What I do like that Lisa has done here with several elements, and one of them is the peacocks, is foreshadowed these things that happen later in the story. So introduced them early and then paid them off later.
Yeah, I mean, it does create that satisfying sense of circularity. You brought something in at the start that we pay off then at the end.
Yep.
There is something I want to just add on that. I think it's a structural thing. We talked about it in the last Daredevil episode. I think it applies here as well. So while I love that circularity of what we've got there, it's not really setting up a scene goal, and you don't have to do all these things, but in my view, it would have been helpful in this story to have some sort of scene goal. So if the scene goal is to not get bitten by the peacocks, for example, and then we do, that's a story, right? But if we just have that sign and it's sort of separate, and then we have a whole story that plays out, which is about these two friends, there's a bit of a bitchy dynamic there, making fun of each other for drinking or not drinking. This guy there that one of them at least is attracted to, or both of them are attracted to, and they're kind of fighting over him. It's really got nothing to do with the peacocks. So we've kind of spent the whole story on other things, only to then come back to the peacocks again at the end. And while I like that kind of bookending of that story, you kind of need the middle to fit with that. And I'm not sure that it does. And so I think what would have been more helpful is if there was kind of like a clear scene goal which related to the peacocks, or even if it didn't relate to the peacocks, it's there right side by side with that. And that plays out over the scene. So the peacocks are there the whole time and like coming in and out, you know what I mean? Rather than just kind of they're there at the start and they're there at the end. You know, we talked last time about the dominoes, like one thing impacting another until the end, rather than just kind of these things happening independently of each other, only to sort of come together at the end.
Yeah. There are a few goals and desires that come through for our main character, Abby, in this story. And I think maybe one of the challenges that I had connecting with her and her goals is that there are a few different things floating around. She's attracted to this man. This sommelier who's serving her. And that's one thing. Underlying everything is just like she's hungry and she's day drinking and she can't stop thinking about food. So she's got these things that are floating around, and I'm not sure really which one I want to latch onto and have drawn to like a satisfying conclusion. They are both kind of fairly low stakes.
I don't know. I think the food thing is very high stakes. I get very angry.
When you're in that mood, it feels like life or death. But
she's ready to eat a roasted peacock.
Yeah, she's hungry. We've all been there. When you few drinks, you haven't eaten properly.
Yeah, and look, I think the scene goal here is food. That's what's set up for us. And then that's not paid off in the climax, right? We've got this full setup that she's starving and she's pissed off at her friend because she hasn't even had a crumb, and she's getting quite drunk and all of these things. It's all the setup, but then the ending doesn't have any bearing on that. Like, take that back. We do, because we talk about the pizza next door and that does come up at the ending, but it's not really the resolution to this particular story. And so I think that's an issue. I think that if we stick a little bit more closely to scene goal and then obstacles getting in the way of that scene goal, and then ending with a conclusion where you either achieve or don't achieve that goal, you tend to have a more cohesive feeling package of a story.
So I was thinking about this as well, and I know we're kind of jumping around a little bit and we're now thinking about the story overall, but trying to just work out, because what I think Lisa has done very well is set up those goals of being hungry, of having this man that she's interested in. She set up the peacocks as part of the story, which again gets paid off. All of those things do actually reach a resolution at the end of the story. What I think is an issue here is that the main character doesn't actually have any agency in achieving any of those. So we're not presented with this story arc where she has these desires and she needs to seek to overcome them. She finds a way to do it. There's some change and she gets what she wants. It really is the peacocks that do the work, and she is just there being drunk and it falls in her lap essentially at the end. So the last line feels almost like a deus ex machina, like peacocks turn up and now she gets what she wants. So I think, again, back to your dominoes, if there was some agency, if there was something that caused that sequence of events on Abby's part, that may have been a little bit more satisfying as an ending.
Yeah, I think it's all about having this cohesion of concept, right? We've got a few ideas here, and you're right, they do get paid off. They're not just sort of mentioned and then forgotten, but there needs to be like a thread from start to finish of these things impacting each other to get there. And I think we've made that point clear. I do think that that is a challenge in this story, and it's probably the main challenge in this story, because what this story does have a lot of, and what I'm realizing more and more is very important, is voice. The voice is really strong. We have really fun characters here. We have this kind of catty dynamic which brings in the drama and the tension, and I love that. Like, I guess you set yourself up with a little bit of a challenge if you have a character who is a bit catty, right? And she is. She's like, oh, bitch, slut. Like, that's pretty full on to say about your friend. So that, I guess, is a challenge, that to get the reader on side and to care about this character's goals and what they want. You know, you kind of want the reader to sort of be barracking for your main character. It's not the only way to do things, but it is something to bear in mind when you've got this kind of catty dynamic of like, whose side are we on here? What are we what are we wanting to see? Do we want her to get her happy ending? Do we want her to get her comeuppance? Like, what are you setting the reader up to expect and to want in this story? It's something worth thinking about.
Yeah, it's funny because I didn't have a negative response to the main character being catty and bitchy, just because it wasn't personal about her friend. It was all about how she was responding to this guy.
What do you mean it's not personal? She called her a slut.
I know she did, but it wasn't about her. It was about
the jealousy.
It was about the jealousy
Yeah.
towards this other guy. So that made sense to me.
Speaking as a bitch. No, look, whatever. Like, I'm just putting my perspective on that. It's just something you tread carefully with, I guess, if you're putting in a character who she's there with her friend and she's seeking to undermine her friend. We've got the friend sort of set up as this antagonist, but she's not doing much that's particularly harsh herself. You know, she's just getting on with things. So anyway, it's worth bearing in mind what you're setting the reader up with there.
Yeah, but I do agree with you on the voice. The voice is very strong here and it really does drive this story and keep it entertaining. And it is entertaining all the way through. So I do like in the early section here where basically after the introduction, yet here we are, third winery and not even a breadcrumb all morning. I'd kill for a fucking gherkin. The tension starts to build and it's done in a funny way and in a pleasing way. And there's also some good showing, I guess. So Amy's shoving her glass forwards, leaning so her tits spill forwards too. Slut. I like the showing there.
You like that. You like that showing. Gotcha.
No, I just like how it's very apparent from the context there what is going on in the mind of the protagonist, and we get her jealousy coming through without having to say the word jealous or anything along those lines. So really good showing.
No, absolutely. And I think throughout, like, that's the kind of bouncy vibe that we've got. We've got fun dialogue. We've got don't smirk at me when I say bouncy, all right? Yeah, like I do think it's fun throughout. It keeps your interest throughout as well with that sort of tension between them. I do have one little logic question, which is that we talk about how Amy is drinking. Like, that's why when I spit, it echoes in the spittoon, right? But Abby is drunk.
Yeah.
And so how did Abby get so drunk if she's getting a little bit on her high horse about I'm spitting it out? And there's this joke about her not swallowing and all of this stuff, and yet she's quite drunk. Like, I understand you can get quite drunk pretty quickly on a bit of wine and no food, but it kind of contradicts itself on that.
Well, I think that's the unreliable narrator that Lisa's calling out. So we're not really trusting Abby in her recounting of events here.
True, but I guess it's not set up in a way where that feels satisfying. It sort of feels more like confusing. And maybe that's a fine line. I don't know. But to me, it feels like a bit of a logical question that as a reader, you're like, hang on. The friend as well, who must have her own perspective, is also joking about her not swallowing.
Yeah.
So it appears to all, there's an echo, there's her jokes, it appears to all, based on the evidence that we're given, not just what she's saying, that she's not actually swallowing the alcohol. And so that becomes a bit of a question. Like, if you were setting me up with the evidence that contradicts what she's saying, so she's saying the friend is drinking and she's not, and yet we're seeing her drinking, I think that starts to sort of feel a little bit more satisfying in terms of what she's saying and thinking versus the reality. But if the evidence is actually supporting what she's saying, then how is that unreliable? You've just given me some facts that support what she's saying. So
making that clear. And that is a tricky thing to pull off. But I do enjoy the fact that Abby is getting so noticeably drunk progressively through the story in what is a very short space of time, really. But we see her start to kind of unravel, and that's fun to watch.
Absolutely. It does make for an entertaining story. I have another little challenge, which is, and I don't know how you feel about this, but Wine Fabio feeling like quite an old reference.
Yeah.
Not just an old reference, because I'm familiar with Fabio, the romance novel cover model hero that we know so well, famously broke his nose or whatever on a roller coaster.
Bird flew into his face.
But also, like, the description of this sommelier to me doesn't match Fabio. Like, he's got a man bun and brown hair, and that's not Fabio to me. Fabio is very much the long blonde hair and the big, bulky, muscly frame.
Who are you picturing?
In this?
Yeah.
Like, I'm picturing like a skinny kind of hipster kind of guy.
Yeah.
Not this kind of big, burly, like overly built muscly, blonde, super tan guy. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I have been to the Hunter Valley. I've never seen anyone like that there. You tend to see the more hipster kind of type of people. So, I mean, I'm being nitpicky here, and I'm speaking just from my own experience of what I'm picturing, but I'm just not sure that that's quite the right reference for...
Yeah, I mean, I guess aside from the Hunter Valley reference, it's the fact that the Fabio reference doesn't match how the character has been described.
It doesn't match how the character's been described, and it also just feels like, well, you know, these sound like sort of younger women.
Yeah.
Fabio is quite an old reference. Is that who you're thinking about, or are you thinking about someone more modern, like Jacob Elordi or something like that? Do you know what I mean? Like, why are we going so far back into this old reference? I mean, that's me being critical, but that's my opinion. If I was beta reading this, that's something that I would bring up and just sort of say, oh, I'm not sure about that. So make of that what you will. Like, you're more than entitled for that to be the reference if that's your reference. But that's, I guess, something that I would challenge personally. One thing I really do love is the use of the prompts here. So this was my team's prompts. Breaking out some wine is like a really nice use of the breaking out prompt, and a great place to take it if that's what you're inspired by. So that to me was wonderful. Street, the word prompt faded into the background a little bit, the peacocks being from across the street. Great. Tick, you know. But also we have just a couple of the breakdancing moves. So the bartender himself like drops down to get the Pinot, and Amy herself drops down to the ground when she is bitten or whatever. And then there's a corkscrew as well. It's a corkscrew used to open the wine. Of course, most wine bottles in Australia being screw top, but you know, some older stuff. Maybe he's gotten the top shelf stuff out for them. But yeah, like, I think that's a really fun use of the prompts, and it resulted in quite a fun story, which is really cool. Okay, so just going back to Lisa's voicemail, one of the things that Lisa mentioned in that was that this ending was kind of potentially an open-ended kind of situation. Like, is it really a meet cute in a rom-com situation, or is he like, you guys need some food? And so what are your thoughts on that?
It's funny because I didn't actually interpret it as anything other than a meet cute. Like, that wasn't ambiguous at all to me, the ending. It was the fact that, hey, let's go get some lunch. Yeah. I wouldn't expect someone just being nice to use those words.
But it's also like, name's Mark. Like, he's kind of setting it up that way. Yeah.
Good point. I mean, taking Lisa's point about the unreliable narrator, it didn't come through that strong for me in the writing that there was an unreliable narrator, apart from the fact that she was clearly drunk and she didn't know what she was doing, but not in a misleading way.
Yeah, and I think this comes back to what I said earlier about the facts. Like, what are we actually presented as readers in terms of what's actually happening versus what she's saying? And to be honest, what we're presented with is all what she's saying, and we're not getting that conflicting kind of view. Whereas, you know, in these final moments, if we wanted to make it more a case of Mark just being like, you guys need some lunch, we would have needed some of that either in the dialogue, or how does his body language not match that? Like, does she kind of grab his arm and he flinches? Like, whatever it might be, that reflects the fact that he's not into it, even if she thinks he is. But we're not really given that. We're like, name's Mark, fancy some lunch. Like, that sounds like a come on. I don't think that's unreasonable for her to think that. So, yeah, if you wanted to sort of play with that unreliable narrator a bit more, it might come down to what else we get to see that conflicts with that viewpoint.
So one thing I want to just call out about this story that I did enjoy, and is something that a lot of writers struggle with, is the dialogue. And the dialogue here is really great. It's lively, it's fun, it's entertaining. Every line is witty and well thought out, and it doesn't drag. That's a big strength for you, Lisa, is writing good dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, you know, if it comes down to like, why aren't I making the long list? I can't speak to the other stories that we have read over the time, but just referencing this story specifically, I do think it comes down to that structural component, which we talked about in the last Daredevil episode as well. Just giving that kind of complete package of something that feels like a cohesive whole. It's not just a bunch of things together, like a bunch of ideas. Those ideas are woven together in an artful way to feel satisfying by the end of the story. And I don't think we're far off here. It's not like all of this stuff works. It's all playing in together, but it's just not quite tied together and working together towards that goal. And I really do think, as much as I've been harping on about dominoes and stuff, I think that's what it is. It's like, you need your goal, and then you need the conflict to be specific to will this person get their goal or not in this scene? Yes, no, as they progress. And as you mentioned, Ed, like some agency there. What are they doing to kind of work towards their goal? And if her goal is eating, how is she kind of coming up against that challenge? And you mentioned it's low stakes. I don't think that matters because I think you can have a low stakes story and have all that comedy. We've got the drama of being bitten by a peacock. All of that's great and entertaining enough, but it needs to kind of come as a result of these attempts to get food, if that's our goal here, and then for that to be kind of the resolution. If the goal is different, if she's painfully single and it's more to do with that, then that's what we need to be working towards as well. And yeah, you can totally have fun with that unreliable narrator thing where she thinks she's winning Mark over and the friend maybe is actually winning him over or not, or he's just used to drunk women and he flirts to get tips or whatever it might be. But we need to know what that is and we need to be working towards that as the comedic endpoint and pointing everything towards that rather than these pieces just kind of coexisting.
So yeah, all of the pieces I feel are there in the story, and Lisa, you have worked hard to draw them together. But for me, it's the emotional resonance that needs to be there.
Yeah, like if I look back at our initial judging comments on this story, the thing that sort of cropped up between the judges was that this sort of meet cute moment right at the end felt very much like tacked on and not flowing from the story. Now, Lisa's indicated in her message there that that was kind of on purpose to kind of feel like actually that wasn't really happening. She was imagining that. But, you know, we can only comment on our experience, and our experience collectively was we thought it was really happening and it felt very sudden. It's like someone's just had her finger bitten and she's bleeding and now he's like, do you fancy some lunch? And it just felt very like out of nowhere. And emotionally, that's confusing. And you said, Ed, that, you know, you didn't get that emotional resonance. And I think that's the case. It's like all of a sudden we have this sort of romantic moment. And Lisa's indicated that wasn't really what she was trying to set up there, but that's what we got. And so if you want something different, then I think that needs to be reworked a little bit to really clarify exactly what we are and are not getting in that ending there.
Yeah. But again, a lot of positives from this story, and I think you're showing some talent as a writer. Again, great dialogue, some great lines here, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think Lisa, or Scurvy, knows what she's doing. She's had some success elsewhere in other competitions as well. And so, you know, I think it comes down to what each story needs. And, you know, if you've got great beta readers, they can point out, here's where I'm not connecting. And then you get to play with that and fix that up before you submit. So it's really just about that. I have no doubt in my mind that Lisa's capable of connecting all those dots and what have you. It just comes down to knowing exactly what dots you need to connect for the reader. What sometimes is in your mind is not necessarily what ends up on the page. And so you just have to kind of rework until everything's there.
So thank you so much, Lisa, for your story and for putting yourself on the line. And now you can go and enjoy a big glass of wine after that roasting.
And, you know, I think it's very interesting that you said that this was like some sort of self-flagellation for not submitting in January. So I think that's great. Like, sure, why not? Why not just punish yourself this way? But I hope it didn't feel too much like punishment. We are, of course, only here wanting the very best for all of our daredevils. But, you know, it's hard going out there and warts and all in front of everybody to have yourself and your writing skills torn apart.
Absolutely.
But, you know, there's clearly a lot of talent here, and I have no doubt, Lisa, that you'll come back guns blazing for revenge next round.
Absolutely. Well, thank you once again, and we will be back in a week's time with our 5th and final Daredevil for the April round. Until then, ride on.
Ride on.
We hope you enjoyed this special Daredevil episode of Not Quite Right. If you have thoughts on this story, follow us on social media and join the conversation. And if you'd like to participate in the next round of the competition, head over to our website at notquiteright.com. That's WRITE.
Something doesn't seem